Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Monday, July 28th. We are launching the week. Huge thank you to Inez Annie Cyrus, who is producing the show today here on the Shannon Joy Show. We're live on Rumble, live on Spreely, live on Roku TV, Apple TV. We are on Twitter, Substack, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. The Shannon Joy Show is there. Also available for audio on every podcast platform you can ever imagine. Growing this tiny little network every single day, clinging to the truth as we are pummeled with propaganda from both sides of the political aisle, the left-wing news media and the right-wing news media, all serving political agendas. Those agendas never really work out for the little guy, and we are here to keep them all accountable from an independent perspective every single day. Very unique today in American culture, but we're able to do it. So it's wonderful to be with all of you today. I see the live chat is already hopping. Annie told me as we were preparing the show that Mondays are always very chatty. So everyone comes on to the live chat on Rumble, and you all have your own relationships. And I love seeing your conversations and, what you did over the weekend. It's always pretty wonderful, but you guys all look great today. I'm going to take a couple of your comments in just a minute, but a big show today. We aren't wasting any time. Last week, we have done the deep dive into technocracy, the expansion of AI and technocratic control in this country, ushered in by the Trojan horse for the technocrats, Donald Trump. We're going to be continuing that discussion today with Aaron Day. He is an expert in the technocracy, but also in digital currencies and economics. He's going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Another massive headline that is not getting enough play on right-wing news media because way too many right-wingers, influencers, and commentators are too busy worshiping Donald Trump to alert their audiences to some of the most dystopian developments that I have seen in the past 10 years. First, with the expansion of AI, the crushing of states' rights, and the handover of our governance, our government, to technocratic oligarchs. It is happening via executive order, via legislation, via emergency declarations, and these are all at the hands of Donald Trump. The buck stops with Trump. We're going to talk about that in a minute on the Shannon Joy Show. But also in the headlines, and this was reported by Financial News, and it's beginning to make its way out, but Donald Trump is planning to, after years of lobbying and heavy lobbying over the past 7 to 8 months, Donald Trump is about to sign, reports say, another executive order that would open up your retirement, your 401k, IRAs to not only private equity, but also crypto and Bitcoin. This is a huge development, and it is putting every American's retirement at risk. They're going to make you think that this is going to be an amazing investment opportunity for you. They're going to make you think that it is voluntary, but it appears from what we know so far, and there was a letter that most people believe that this executive order will be based on. This is essentially a bailout, a massive bailout for the 1%, the billionaires, the trillionaires, the private equity class, and also the Bitcoiners. We've been predicting this. We've had Catherine Austin Fitz on the show multiple times to talk about this. Aaron Day is the best expert to have on this topic because not only does he understand the economy and economies, but he also understands the technocracy and Bitcoin. Aaron Day was an early adapter to Bitcoin back, 15, 20 years ago, but he was also one of the earliest whistleblowers. He was out there ringing the alarm bells when the hijacking of Bitcoin occurred, when Bitcoin was taken over by the same oligarchs, bureaucrats, and technocrats that have messed so many things up in the American economy and in American culture over the past 20 years. And now they're, embarking on a full-scale plundering of 401ks and IRAs. So we're going to talk about that. I have a great video for you from a woman. I just found her. Her name is Tiffany Cianci, and she is on Twitter under the handle The Vino Mom. But she is quite brilliant. I did link a Financial Times piece in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show, and I have a quick overview coming from Ann Vanderstill that was quite comprehensive, easy to understand, that we're going to go over before we run her video. But she put out a 14-minute video that I think is very instructive, and it explains very clearly what is happening. And she uses Yale and Harvard as examples of institutions who have become screwed by private equity firms. They're trying to offload those firms, but they can't because no one's buying them because of high interest rates and the fact that the economy is in the toilet, which most people on right-wing news media won't tell you. Right. So now they are so desperate to offload these worthless investments. They need to open up the American people and $12 trillion worth of funding in Americans' private 401ks and Roth IRAs. It is a disaster, but she explains it very well. And I'd actually like to go through the whole video. We don't usually do this, but we'll start now. Annie, if you want to pull up the first part of her video, and we'll just get a taste of where we're going so that you guys understand what's going on, the full scope of the picture right before we bring Aaron Day in. But let's bring up the first part of that video. And Annie, when I cut it off, we'll hold it to the end of the show if we have time. After our interview with Aaron, we'll go through the rest of the video. But the first puts into perspective what is going on here. And then we're going to back this up with the Ann Vanderstill piece and then what we have from Financial Times, which is one of my favored sources, on the record sources for financial news. I've been using them for many, many years. They seem to be slightly less political than some of the other outlets, and they have a good write-up here as well. But let's go to Tiffany Cianci and take a look at what she has to say about what is going down with what appears to be a Bitcoin bailout for the billionaires, a new executive order coming from Donald Trump. It hasn't happened yet. So we have time to rally, to write letters, to call our legislators, to alert the presses that this is coming down the pipe, and we need to fight like hell against this. It's urgent. This is what Tiffany Cianci had to say in this 14-minute video explainer, which is also linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. Annie, let's start with that. Let's roll it.
For the past several months, I have been warning everyone that the private equity industry was creating a massive bubble in our economy that was about to pop. Well, it just went, and right now they have sent all of their lobbyists to Washington, D.C. to beg the government for a bailout. And it's happening. Donald Trump and his administration are issuing an executive order that will take $12 trillion of your retirement savings, not taxpayer money, your money, and it will bail out not only the private equity industry, but their biggest investors. They're going to bail out Harvard and Yale and every billionaire investor private equity is about to grift. Let's get into it. That's right, everybody. Trump is set to issue an executive order that will open the floodgates and allow private equity funds to access and tap $12 trillion in 401k holdings in America. And the same people that control your 401ks have debt that is stuck with private equity right now, giving them poor returns and in desperate need of a capital infusion. No conflict of interest here, everybody. Just look the other way. Private equity is in big trouble. They need a bailout fast, and you are their only hope. But don't worry. Don't worry. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be the deal of a lifetime for you. That's right. Harvard and Yale, they're trying to sell their private equity funds and no one will buy them. But if you help buy them, you're going to get 1,000% windfalls. 1,000% windfalls in a day. Because definitely, if the wealthy had a chance to make 1,000% windfalls, they would absolutely be sharing it with you. They wouldn't keep it for themselves. They want everybody to be wealthy, obviously. And that's why they're promising 1,000% windfalls that will make your brain melt if you just let them have access to your 401k. So how did we get here? Well, over the last 30 years, private equity as a sector.
All right, we're gonna get to how did we get here at the end of the show. A really great explainer video from Tiffany Cianci, and what I love about her basically this defies logic and the smell test. This is when your common sense should kick right in. When Harvard and Yale are sending out PR statements saying that you really should consider allowing private equity into your 401k or those types of investments, that the 1000% windfalls will melt your brain. This should be a clue to every one of you that this is something you should reject wholesale in terms of your retirement, whether it's a 401k or a Roth IRA. But here's the dirty little secret. It appears, we don't have the text of this executive order yet. We don't know exactly what it's going to say, but it appears that they are going to write the executive order in a way that would not necessitate that the fund managers or the companies that run your 401k or your IRA investments even have to disclose to you the changes that they're making. So they could go in and begin to shift some of their assets to private equity firms and Bitcoin and crypto or tokens or meme coins or stable coins or whatever it is, and you might not even know about it. All right, that's how dangerous this is. And even if you know about it, it is not clear that as the custodian of your own 401k or IRA, you'll even have the power to direct to the custodian, or that you'll be able to direct whether or not you want these investments to be a part of your portfolio, right? So this is going to impact, if this executive order moves forward, this is going to impact millions of Americans, and it is going to be yet another opportunity for you to choose. Reminds me a lot of Operation Warp Speed and the COVID-19 vaccines and the lockdowns, the dystopian nightmare. Everyone was begging for the fix, for the saving. And this is the way that the government, it appears, is going to tell you they have fixed the economy. All you have to do is hand over your retirement to the Trump administration and his cronies. And so people are going to have to make choices. Hopefully, people will be able to make those choices. And there certainly, though, is going to be a lot of coercion here. So this is from Ann Vanderstill. In just a minute, we're going to say hello to all of you on the live chat. This is from Ann Vanderstill. She pushed this out. This is a nice thread. Again, Trump administration moving to allow private equity and hedge funds and crypto and Bitcoin to access your 401k. They're going to claim that this is democratizing private equity, that this is about diversification. If the rich people can have private equity, why can't we? It's about free markets. None of that is true. And she goes on, look closer. This is about propping up a struggling financial sector and rebalancing the federal balance sheet without calling it a bailout. Again, very similar to the housing crisis of 2007 and 8, when we, the people, the taxpayers, bailed out Wall Street, and it infuriated and enraged millions of Americans. This time they want to do the exact same thing, but they know they can't get away with it front facing. They know they have to sneak it in on the back end, and this is how they're going to do it. She writes here, private equity needs the cash. Retirement accounts hold 25.5 trillion, and the new rules will let your 401k and IRA buy illiquid, high fee private equity assets, which quietly shifts the risks off of Wall Street and onto the people. This isn't just market innovation, it is financial engineering. And Aaron Day is going to help us with the crypto and the Bitcoin component of this, because I believe that will be built in or baked into the cake. So those private equity firms, are they invested in massive amounts of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins and stable coins? Who knows? But this is where Aaron Day is going to be able to help us understand this. But by moving this risk into retirement accounts, the government can delay a market collapse without direct bailouts. So you will just get poorer and poorer and poorer over time. It seems like that's the way they're going to try to do this. Death by a million cuts, right? They know that's something that would, and this doesn't mean that they can't stave off a full-scale market collapse, but they know that that would be something that would alert the American people that something was very wrong with our currency, with our government, with our politics, with our banking system, and that would move Americans into making different decisions. And so it does seem that if they can get away with it, they would like to do this slowly over time. Your purchasing power continues to degrade, the value of your retirement and your assets continue to degrade through market manipulations, and you end up basically with nothing. Mark the Reagan, Noam Chomsky estimated, 10 billion is spent in the year using mind control in the US. Yeah, that's really insane. Thanks, Diog99. Shannon just made the headline point for all the national news. They will use theft of 1,000 cuts. That's what it appears to be. That's what it appears to be at this point. It's a stealth strategy to defend the dollar, which is essentially going to be shifted into some type of crypto or government-backed crypto, and the debt. In terms of taxes, there's an alert here, writes Ann Vanderstill. These private equity products often create pass-through income, or UBTI. Yes, even in a tax-deferred retirement account. Translation, you could even get taxed before you retire, even if your 401k isn't paying out to you yet. All right. So there's another element on the federal balance sheet. This will boost confidence. Workers take the risk. Private equity stays afloat. The treasury doesn't have to print or borrow more. And that's how 25 trillion in retirement funds becomes a de facto national buffer. Your money. In the same way that they have absolutely decimated your dollar, they will decimate the value of your retirement account. And frankly, it would probably be better if there was a collapse right now, because the people who would really take it in the chin are these mega millionaire, billionaire investors. Institutions like Harvard and Yale could go out of business. They could go bankrupt, right? So it's that upper echelon, maybe the 5% that would really take the hit here. Those of us who are in middle class, upper class, working class, there'll be some turmoil, but we don't have that much money to begin with. So we're not, there actually might be opportunities for us in that type of situation, to make some economic gains or make some good financial decisions. So what they really want to do, they're going to make you think that, this collapse is going to impact you, and it will to a certain extent. But I think that it is way more painful for the 5%, the massive institutions, our own government, right? To have this type of collapse. And I've talked to other financial advisors about that, and they tend to agree, right? Catherine thinks that stablecoins will extend the dollar's life by 10 to 15 years and are a way to continue to feed the war economy. I agree. And she's talking about Catherine Austin Fitts. So how does this impact the Fed? Well, the Federal Reserve, the author of many of the problems that we face today because of the continued money printing and the devaluation of the dollar, and the cushy carve out for banking institutions, the Fed will get more runway now. So we're going to buy time for the Federal Reserve by stabilizing private equity portfolios. Again, private equity portfolios are for like the elite, rich, the wealthy. We're kind of blocked out. I think you have to have like at least $1 million, or you have to meet certain metrics in order to get in on private equity. And so again, this is the upper 5, maybe 1% of the economy. And so by stabilizing those portfolios, it indirectly protects pension funds, commercial real estate, and banks loaded with bad debt, all without more quantitative easing. So the Fed now has a little bit of breathing room because they're going to get that nice, juicy influx of cash from your retirement account, from you, off the backs of the little guy. Bottom line, writes Ann Vanderstiel, your 401k, and it includes IRAs as well, just became a liquidity pool for private equity. The government gets indirect debt relief. The people inherit the risk. Does that sound familiar? Hello, the bank bailouts of 2000, the collapse of 2007, the bailouts of 2008. It's the exact same scenario. The people inherit the risk. and potentially the tax bill. This isn't a conspiracy. It is a clever workaround, and it is being ushered once again in by the Trojan horse, Donald Trump. When the Treasury, Wall Street, and the Fed all face pressure, the only place left to tap is you, your money, your retirement, your liability. Stay alert. And this is from Ann Vanderstill. It was a quick overview of what is going down. That executive order is set to be released in the next few days or in the next week or so. So getting out in front of it is absolutely critical. It's why we're covering this show today, or this today on the Shannon Joy Show, and we'll continue to bring experts in. Aaron Day will be joining us in just a couple minutes at the bottom of the hour to lend his expertise. Not only is Aaron Day an entrepreneur, an expert on markets, but he is also an expert on the technocracy, AI, and digital currencies. And how digital currencies work into this is going to be very important to understand. Again, if you have a 401k or an IRA that is not self-directed, all right, if you have a fund manager or a corporation or your company is managing those assets, you might not even know if they shift your retirement into private equity, into Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. They might not have to disclose that to you. And even if they do disclose it to you, it is unclear whether or not you, as the custodian, as the funder of that account, will have the power to say no. So that those are all the unknowns right now as we anticipate this executive order that needs to be, I mean, we need every right-wing commentator, because these are the people who will rise up, left-wing too, I really don't care. But we need Glenn Beck's and Ben Shapiro's and The Blaze and Fox News and talk radio, all of the big yappers out there to alert their audiences to what is happening, to give them the details about how they can protect themselves, and to place the blame directly where it belongs. The buck stops with Donald Trump. Had they done that in the dark days of COVID lockdown and in 2020 and in the fall of 2020, then they may have spared their audiences from getting COVID vaccines, poison vaccines, untested, under emergency use authorization against their will. This is why timing matters, right? A lot of these outlets will talk about topics and you'll agree with those topics, and they might be topics that we discuss here in the Shannon Joy Show. But when it matters, when we can stop it, when it comes time to alert the audiences to the betrayals from the president that they all continue to support, that's when they sit back, they shut up, and they do nothing. Okay, there is an opportunity here for we the people to push this president, the Republican Party, and right-wing news media, if you consider yourself to be a conservative, into a truth position. They won't do it willingly. And I learned that over the weekend with a viral video. I pushed out a clip of the Technocracy show that I did last week. It was a primer, a 100 level, like lay it all down on the kitchen table if you want to understand the takeover of our government in our country by unelected, unaccountable technocrats and billionaires. Then you want to watch last week's show on Thursday. But we pulled a clip from that. It went semi-viral. It has about 100,000 views now. And it made some in conservative media on the right a little bit irritated with me. Some of the regular commentators on Steve Bannon's War Room, his name was Joe Allen, and his handle is JoeBotXYZ. They're very irritated with me for calling out right-wing news media for not addressing the problem of the incoming technocracy. And so he is going to be coming on with me on Wednesday. I'll play that clip for you after my interview with Aaron Day, but I want to make sure that we can get the full 30 minutes with Aaron Day. He is in the Joy Virtual Studio right now, so we're going to save that for the end of the show. But again, yes, timing matters, and we can stop this executive order, or at least expose this executive order to alert as many 401k holders and IRA holders as humanly possible as to what they are planning on doing. It is a complete plunder. And The more people who know about it, the more people can protect themselves. So we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, without further ado, we're going to bring Aaron Day into the Joy Virtual Studio to see what he thinks about not only the past 3 weeks of absolute handover. 3 executive orders, an emergency declaration, the signing of the big, beautiful bill, firmly establishing the technocracy in control of our government, essentially ushered in by the Trojan horse, Donald Trump, handing this country over to the technocrats. We're going to get Aaron's thoughts on that. And this latest new mechanism is about the handover of $12 trillion in funding, 401ks and IRAs to the technocrats and the billionaire bankers who have plundered so much already. We're going to get all of that from Aaron Day when we come back here on the Shannon Joy Show. Keep it tuned. Our friends over at Native Path. Hey, you guys know that my morning routine, one of the ways I stay healthy, almost 50 years old. I can't believe that I am almost halfway through a natural life. And one of the ways that I maintain a pain-free lifestyle and great hair, nails, and skin. Also, it's just a great way to restore collagen. You guys know it is my favorite, Native Path collagen. Every single morning in my coffee, it is a must. I use Native Path collagen. Devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy uses Native Path collagen for his joint pain. It has helped him in so many ways. And I believe every person over the age of 40 should be implementing collagen into their diet on a regular basis. Reduces inflammation. There are so many good outcomes from that daily use of collagen. And Native Path collagen is the best on the market. It dissolves instantly. It has absolutely no taste. It is protein. It's beef derived, and it is absolutely clean. The best part, it is the best price point that you will find on collagen anywhere in the market. You won't find these price points at the drugstore. You won't find these price points at your discount grocery center. It is the best collagen for the best price, and you can only get it at getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. That's getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. Use that joy promo code for an additional 45% off. It's the only way you're going to get that stock up sale price. And I just recommend it. I've been using collagen for years. People ask me, how do you stay so young and vibrant, Shannon? And one of my secrets is, of course, Native Path collagen. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Dino Fun, I see you on the live chat. Con Inc. right now, at this critical moment, is talking about Obama and Russiagate. I'm sure they're also talking about Hillary Clinton's laptop and maybe the Lolita Express as well, right? When it matters, Con Inc. is never there. When we can stop something like this, it's as if they all go on vacation and forget all of their principles, everything they've ever said about the technocracy and all of the technocrats surrounding Donald Trump. It just, disappears. This is why these independent shows are important. Without further ado, I do want to welcome into the Joy Virtual Studio, Aaron Day. There is probably no better expert to discuss this with than Aaron. Not only is he a tech entrepreneur, he was also an early adapter to Bitcoin and one of the most prominent critics of it after it had been hijacked. He understands economies. He understands digital ID, digital currencies, and most importantly, Aaron is independent. He does not sit on the right or the left. He does not carry water for this administration or any administration, and has been so consistent over the past 4 years. Aaron Day, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. So glad that you're with us today.
Thank you for having me back. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, like a fire hose in my face every single Monday. Yep. That is a 24-hour news cycle. What do you make of? Let's start with Trump's executive orders, 3 of them in the past 10 days, on top of the emergency declaration for energy and also the big beautiful bill, which helps to implement the technocracy. I call Trump the Trojan horse for the technocrats, and it seems as if it's done. What do you make of this flurry of activity and the lack of interest from, traditionally right-leaning outlets which would care about these types of things?
Yeah, I mean, I like to call this the complete technocratic takeover, and in fact, this is what I've been focused on for the last 3 4 years is warning people about technocracy. And people were concerned about it a year ago. People were concerned about it before the election because they viewed the technocracy as being Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab and the UN. And so they're buying the propaganda. But what's actually happened is I think technocracy has accelerated probably by about 5 years based on what's just happened in, the last 6 to 7 months.
Hmm.
A- And this, I mean, this includes, people worry about digital ID. I think when I was on last time, we talked about that. That's what real ID is. It is already digital in 8 states, and they're expanding to the other states. The one big beautiful bill added $150 billion for surveillance. There's essentially the Patriot Act 2.0 within the one big bill,
Wow.
which is being used for AI, drones, surveillance across the board. And so that wasn't discussed. People have bought the propaganda on that. And of course, my primary area of interest and focus has been around CBDCs, and what they passed with the Genius Act is actually worse than a CBDC. And unfortunately, it's a little bit technical to explain. But I think the easiest way I can do it right now is to say I'm redefining CBDC as a Congress-backed digital currency. That's that.
Okay,
It,
there we go. There you
it,
go.
well, and there's an important reason for that. What they've done, what the politicians have done, the Trump administration and Congress, is they've made the Federal Reserve out to be the bad guy. Now, don't get me wrong, the Federal Reserve is the bad guy in the sense that they're a completely unnecessary third party. It's a private cartel of banks that essentially just makes money out of thin air backed by government debt. So they're
Right.
completely useless as a third party. However, all of the financial surveillance that is in the current system, our money's already trackable, it's already programmable, it's already censorable. None of that originated from the Federal Reserve. The primary source of financial surveillance, meaning the know your customer laws and anti-money laundering laws, all of that information that you have to give to a bank or to a crypto exchange just to set up an account with biometric readings and all of this other stuff, all of the tracking that's being done in terms of AI surveillance with the IRS or NSA bulk data collection, and even the debanking that's happened with people like Dr. Joseph Mercola and even the Trump family. None of that originated with the Federal Reserve. Most of that originated from Congress. So what they've done is they've tried to convince people that the Federal Reserve is the bad guy, even though they're the bad guy with respect to financial surveillance. And then they've taken a private solution called stablecoins and put it under the control of Congress and the Federal Reserve. And they've painted it out to be something that's patriotic and being done to protect the financial privacy of Americans, even though it's the exact opposite of that. It's adding the financial surveillance to something that was already popular and private. So it's ingenious in that respect. So we have that. So we have a backdoor CBDC, but I would argue even worse because there's no resistance to it. If you tried to launch a CBDC from scratch, you would get resistance. In this case, stablecoins were used for $27 trillion worth of transactions last year. That's more than Visa. So you've taken something that's wildly popular and now you've backdoored it into something that's now under government control. So in an emergency, as we know, this is how Congress works. Next time there's a big emergency, a cyber attack, whatever it happens to be, Congress could meet and say, hey, you know what? Stablecoin issuers, if you want to be legal, you're going to have to add the ability for complete programmable money and the ability to only allow people to use stablecoins to buy products and services that are on a pre-approved whitelist. They have the ability to do that now. This is essentially what's been opened up here.
You
And in the history of financial surveillance, which goes back to 1970 with the Bank Secrecy Act, it's never been reversed. Financial surveillance from Congress only moves in one direction, and it gets worse one emergency at a time.
And this is primarily through the Genius Act, which was just signed into law last week. Am I correct, Aaron? And
Yes.
and again, Aaron stating, and I think that he is spot on that with the BBB and the Genius Act, this is the Patriot Act on steroids in terms of surveillance and the expansion of government surveillance. Can you give a quick overview of the Genius Act, the most troublesome elements of the Genius Act? I mean, here essentially it is creating the backdoor CBDC, right? It is just kind of using stable coins or something that's already popular in order to to write that into law. But can you give the audience an overview of why this is so bad, what your concerns are with it?
Yeah, the reason it's bad is that, and many people aren't aware, is that our existing financial surveillance is bad. So these Bank
Right.
Secrecy Acts and Patriot Act and all that other stuff is bad. What this is doing is essentially applying those already bad surveillance rules to the stablecoin. So that's the first part of it that's bad. So in other words, we're adding trackability, programmability and censorship to something that's private, something that's popular. So in essence, it's making it a backdoor CBDC. The other major problem with this, and interestingly enough, because they've just made out the Federal Reserve to be the bad guy, but yet now stablecoin issuers are going to have to provide monthly audits to the Federal Reserve. And I want everybody to think about how absurd this is. The idea that, we have the Federal Reserve that itself hasn't been audited is now, in order to make these things somehow stable and something that people are going to have confidence in, we're going to have the Federal Reserve auditing them every month. Isn't that a bit odd?
Right.
But what I think you're going to see happening here is, and this happens often with Congress and with regulations, they put in regulations that are so difficult to comply with that it creates a scenario where the new players, like in this case Tether and USDC, will have to be acquired by larger banks in order to
Okay.
meet the regulatory burden. So what I suspect you're going to see out of this is not a million stable coins and any kind of innovation or
Right.
proliferation of that. You're going to see the same institutions capture something that was successful and then give control over surveillance to Congress. And we're already seeing that. The four big banks, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Citi, and Wells Fargo, have announced that they're going to work together to launch a CBDC, a stable coin. And then individually, I know at least Wells Fargo and Bank of America have announced they're going to individually launch a stable coin. So this isn't in any way good. This doesn't represent a positive development for Americans. The truth is, you never were going to be in a situation where Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve was the one that was going to be surveilling your coins. It's actually not even in their interest to do so. Now all of the digital programmable money is going to be in control of Congress and whatever commercial banks end up owning this. So that's the one first big area is surveillance that's wrong with this. The other is one of the main driving forces for even doing this is, and it relates to the one big bill. We have $37 trillion in debt. No one wants to buy U.S. Treasuries anymore. China has said ditch the dollar, and Japan has said is not in the position to invest as much because of their own economic struggles. And so those
Right.
have been traditionally the largest purchasers of U.S. Treasuries. Well, it's now you could say, well, remember just 6 months ago when people were saying we were going to balance the budget? I remember from Trump's first term said he was going to eliminate the debt in 2 terms.
Unbelievable.
So, but that didn't happen. So we passed the one big bill, which means we're going to add $2.5 trillion a year for the next 2 years, and then I'm sure beyond to the debt. So how are you going to fund this? Well, one of the things that they've put into the Genius Act is if you're a stablecoin issuer, you have to back your stablecoins 1-to-1 by only U.S. Treasuries and only U.S. dollars. This means that, according to our own Treasury Secretary, they believe they're going to be able to sell at least $2 trillion worth of treasuries to back these stable coins and to participate in all of the stablecoin hype. So we're getting a backdoor CBDC and funding debt and all of the tyranny that goes along with current U.S. government policy. Those are the two things that we effectively get out of this legislation.
Unbelievable. So again, once on the backs of the American people, we're bailing out our own government. All of the profligate spending, all of the debt spending. We essentially, through this process, individual Americans will be propping up our dollar. Is that what I'm understanding? Or bailing ourselves out?
Well, it's not just American citizens. It's anybody who uses a stablecoin. People
Right.
all over the world use stablecoins. So anybody that uses a stablecoin anywhere in the world is participating in the funding of U.S. debt.
Oh my gosh. Where does Bitcoin fall in? And can you help me understand the difference between there's stable coins that is that kind of like the umbrella over Bitcoin, Tether, these different type of digital or cryptocurrencies? Like, can you just do a quick explainer on that so people understand?
I mean, they're all digital assets
Okay.
is one way of looking at it, and Bitcoin is a separate blockchain. It's its own separate thing outside. I mean, they're all cryptocurrencies in a way,
Okay.
but Bitcoin is its own thing. It's its own blockchain. And without getting into all the technical details, it has, proof of work. It's supposed to be decentralized. There's no central party that's issuing the Bitcoin, and you have these different computers all over the world competing to solve math puzzles to add transactions to the
Right.
block every 10 minutes. Stable coins are simply digital tokens that are not necessarily their own blockchains. In fact, you may even have something like Tether, where Tether uses multiple different blockchains to create digital tokens. And those digital tokens are tokens that represent another asset. In the case of stable coins, right, one token represents $1. So that's
Okay.
that's the specific description of what makes stable coins different from cryptocurrencies. But by the way, and related to, I know, part of the discussion today, there's coming up next the Clarity Act, where they're going to create digital tokens that represent all of our stocks, bonds, and all commodities, gold, silver, oil, and everything else. So now all of those assets are going to become programmable, trackable, and censorable. And they're going to add the know your customer anti-money laundering stuff that applies to our current banking system and now applies to stablecoins. That is now going to apply to your stocks, bonds, and all of your other financial assets. And so why this is important is money only represents 5% of global assets. I mean, think about it. How many of you actually have cash sitting in a bank account? Most people don't have a very significant portion of their net worth in cash. Where do you have it? You have it in stocks, bonds, 401ks, IRAs, all of those other things. Those are going to be digitized and made programmable as well. This is how we end up owning nothing, is by adding this level of programmability to all of the world's assets and then giving control over who controls those digital tokens to centralized parties. And that, I've been warning about this for quite some time. I just didn't think it was going to happen this quickly or in this way. And the problematic part of it is people are cheering it on, watching the propaganda. I don't think most of the people in Congress that voted for these things, including the Genius Act, understand it at all based on watching the C-SPAN coverage of it. But their talking points are pure propaganda, and they're trying to make this out as some patriotic thing that's going to preserve the dollar, but they're not. They're leaving out the fact that it's adding dystopian financial surveillance and being used as a way to fund debt, which people
Yeah.
are not happy with. The people are not happy. I mean, Republicans are not happy with the debt. Republicans are not happy with $2.5 trillion a year in additional spending. This is not what we were promised during the election. And so
No.
now they have a gimmick in terms of we're going to capture a private industry and use that as a hype gimmick to fund debt.
It reminds me of the lockdowns of 2020, and everyone was miserable. No one was happy with being locked down. Everyone was afraid of the COVID. And then they rolled out, no one understood what these new mRNA shots were. They were, they had never been discussed before. They were ramped up very quickly, Operation Warp Speed. And then people were coerced and manipulated into taking the shots, so many against their will, in order to keep their jobs, as some sort of false solution to the pandemic. And this reminds me of that in many ways. The fact that you're not really hearing a ton. I mean, normally right wingers would lose their minds over this. You would think that left wingers right now would be losing their mind because they're not supposed to like Donald Trump, right? So they should be losing their mind, but everyone's kind of anesthetized and just it's barreling forward. I wanted to ask you, what is the Bitcoin component here?
The Bitcoin component is a very clever strategy to get people to part with their money and push it into this digital gold narrative, which I would put differently is actually digital surveillance gold, because it's worse than gold in many ways, because it's all tracked on a public ledger. So the US government has seized 200,000 Bitcoin
Right.
and already using civil asset forfeiture. So if you look at it this way, I mean, if you're buying Bitcoin through an ETF or through a 401k moving forward or some of these other financial instruments, read the documentation. They state in there that it can be confiscated, and this can be confiscated much more easily than FDR confiscated gold, because it can be done with the click of a button. Because in most cases, people aren't even going to have self custody of the Bitcoin. It's going through actually a couple of different layers. It may be BlackRock, and then BlackRock doesn't even hold the Bitcoin. They're using an exchange like Coinbase, and so a very simple court order, and all of a sudden, Coinbase is going to comply with that kind of an order, and now everybody has lost their assets. But by the way, this applies with your 401k and your IRA and everything as well. You already really don't own those either today, and that's going to become much worse under the Clarity Act, because it's going to be easier technically, because it's going to be more programmable for them to kind of take those assets as well, which is most likely to happen in a financial collapse. And that's a whole other separate story about the great taking, which I think we've talked about before, but it's probably worth, I know we're not going to have time to do it today, but it's worth discussing.
We can't keep you longer. Just cancel your next interview, Aaron, and stick around here for a little while, and we can go in. No, I'll have you on again to get into the great taking. Okay, so what does this mean to regular people? And there's got to be a way, with the COVID-19 shots, it seemed very dark and dystopian, and they had all the power, and everybody was just going off a cliff taking the shot, and we thought it was going to be super terrible. But there was a good 35, maybe 40% of Americans who did not take the shot, and that created a huge problem for the people who would like to proceed with the great taking, the great reset, global governance, whatever it is. Where do you see the silver lining? What can we do now in the next 3 to 5 years? Awareness, I think, is the first step. Understanding is the second step, right? Spinning yourself out from the two-party political system, knowing that they're both in on it together. Where do you see people going? Regular people like you and me. What do we do? How can we resist this and begin to tell other people about it so that they can practice resistance as well?
Well, the best thing to do is, what I've done is I've stopped using a personal bank account. We have to stop using the dollar, and we need to start creating private marketplaces where we can exchange goods and services. I would say with a priority emphasis on food and healthcare.
Okay.
But we need parallel systems. We are 100% not going to vote our way out, as evidenced by the fact that technocracy is accelerated under this administration, and people still don't even realize that they actually voted for the thing that they claimed that they were against. This is why that voting is hopeless. And by the way, what we're looking at for the 2028 election, the technocrats have already won. Why? J.D. Vance is a technocrat. He's the forerunner for the Republican Party. Elon Musk, who's a technocrat, has formed America's Party, which, if you read what it stands for, is the Technocrat Party. And so what's going to happen now is people are going to have some fake division. They're going to waste all of their time thinking, oh, do you support Elon or do you support J.D. Vance? And that is that's a difference without a distinction. I mean, there's no choice there. So, and by the way, with the acceleration of AI, we don't have 3 to 5 years. Again, I'm horrified by what's happened in 6 months. Klaus Schwab's got to be tickled to death. To put in the perspective, based on the growth rate in stablecoins, by 2030, there will be more use of stablecoins than Visa, MasterCard, and direct deposit through banks combined. That's how fast the growth rate is here. So, we're talking about, like, that would have never happened if you launched a CBDC, even in China, who first started working on a CBDC in 2014. Their rollout hasn't been that great. It's been very slow going. So we through this backdoor stablecoin thing, the U.S. is leapfrogging everyone else essentially in CBDC level surveillance, which, by the way, is creating an arms race where now other countries and other regions like the EU are accelerating their CBDCs. So the only thing that's going on now globally is a rush for who's going to have what percentage control over digital money. No one's actually fighting programmable digital money controlled by governments. No one. The right isn't, the left isn't, as you mentioned earlier. So it's not a political solution. It's exiting, it's using privacy coins, it's starting to use gold and silver in day-to-day transactions, and it's replicating the centralized systems that they're going to be building using tokens, which I described a little bit. All of that can be recreated in a private manner where you can have the tokens and do the transactions privately without third-party involvement and without third parties being able to view or censor the transactions. That is actually the way that we compete with this. So I'm done with trying to give people, financial advice on, well, hey, you can hedge here. There is no hedging. If you want free will, you have to exit these systems. Technocracy does not allow multiple different systems to flourish within it. You're not going to hide in the woods. This is, particularly if you read about even what the ideology is behind it, they believe that only scientists and engineers can make decisions for people, and if they're not the ones making decisions, they think that humanity is going to face an existential threat. So they're not in this to just do a trial in a small region. This is a global initiative.
Yeah. I think that do you have optimism? I mean, I love seeing states with initiatives to create, well, first and foremost, gold and silver is legal tender, and then also state sovereign banks. I mean, I do think that the tension, there's friction, right? Like we're moving in there. I don't think that we could say reasonably that there won't be digital monies or digital types of monies, or we use them now, and we're okay with it. It is, the government's now coming in and controlling and cheating, but even worse, being able to surveil and confiscate and control our behaviors based on these tokens. And basically, it's just food stamps. They're creating food stamps. Everything. You want to buy a house, here are your food stamps. Want to buy a car, here are your food stamps. They're all digital, they're tokens, and that's kind of what they want us on. Do you think that Americans getting into real estate, getting into physical gold and silver, exiting the system, finding those parallel institutions, and resisting as much as they possibly can, you think that's going to be, because if enough of us do it, I'd say if a clean 10% get on board with this, they're going to have a lot of problems. I don't think the technology is there. I don't think they're nearly as smart as they think they are. I think they're going to try with all the surveillance, but I don't think AI is as dangerous as everyone thinks it is. I think that it is dangerous, but there are a million ways that we can expose them and just and exit in the way that you talk about.
Well, there's always a possibility, but I will say right now, it's worse today than it was 6 months ago.
Yes,
Because
agree.
we don't have that resistance. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm spending my time trying to build the other systems and everything else. And so, as someone who's been doing this only, I can tell you
Right.
it's still possible, but actually they're executing much better than we are. And in fact, I think that we have complacency around, we're patting ourselves on the back about the response to COVID, when in reality, COVID was just one vector for bringing in technocracy. Every one of these emergencies brings in more technocracy.
Sure.
So a lot of people are spending time focusing on COVID. And what have they done? They've added $150 billion worth of surveillance. They backdoored a CBDC. They're going to digitize all of our financial assets, and they're going to do that this year. Well, what are we doing in response?
Right.
So anyway, on that note, I've got to go, but I do want to come back. There is a way to do this, but I will tell you, if we don't have a sense of urgency about this, we will absolutely get crushed. And that's the part that's missing right now, is a sense of urgency.
I agree with you 100%, and we will have you back on. We'll get you in early next week. We'll do Monday next week, same time. Hopefully we can get you for a full hour, if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. Thank
All
you.
right. So we'll hook you up. We'll book it right now, live on air with Annie. We'll bring you in Monday next week. We'll do a full hour because it's so very important. Where can people find you? How can they support you? We'll let you go.
You can find me at daylightfreedom.org, and you can find me on X at Aaron R. Day.
All right. Very good. Aaron, thank you so much for being with us today. We'll be back in a moment to continue this discussion and get your comments, your questions in the last half hour of the Shannon Joy Show in just a moment. Get them ready. I will read them and we'll have a discussion about this. Keep it tuned right here. We'll be back in a minute. Blackout, brownout, natural disaster, alien invasion, government created disaster, you name it. If you are prepared, then you will not be afraid. And it is only when we are afraid that we are vulnerable to the manipulation and the coercion of this hostile government. And so one of the things that I encourage to this audience and for this audience is to be prepared. Satellite Phone Store has everything you need, from solar panels to generators to Faraday technologies that will protect your devices from a potential EMP attack, and also protect you from EMF radiation from the 5G, the 4G, the 3G, and all of the Gs, right? They have everything you need for communication, so many different satellite, phone, packages for all of your needs. They have great monthly plans. And if you use the promo code JOY, you will get 10% off your annual fee and a free satellite phone. So go to sat123.com/joy today. That is sat123.com/joy today. Use that promo code JOY for all of your purchases. It's always going to get you that nice, robust 10% off. You guys know that one of our amazing sponsors is Colonial Metals Group. We could not bring this show to you, this expansion, this studio, the ability to bring Annie in to produce the show. This is all because of some of our key sponsorships. And Colonial Metals Group has been a partner with the Shannon Joy Show. They have helped so many of you begin your gold and silver journey, whether it's through the purchase of physical gold and silver or through an independent IRA backed by gold and silver. They can do transfers. They can take a 401k and transfer a portion of that or the entire thing into an individual IRA backed by gold and silver that you direct, right? So you have all the control over it. It is much faster and much easier than I ever imagined. It took less than a couple days for me to get mine set up, and they are standing by. They are ready to talk to all of you about how you can begin to protect your retirement. colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Please use that URL. Make sure that you tell them that Shannon Joy sent you. Welcome back, everyone, to the final segment of the Shannon Joy Show. And yes, if you sense that the Bitcoin crypto sharks are circling your 401k, your Roth IRA, if you think that the private equity people are sniffing around, this might be the moment to call our friends over at Colonial Metals Group. They've been with us for so long here on the Shannon Joy Show. Appreciate that partnership. And again, I like them. They don't do doomsday selling. They don't do fear mongering. They give you all the information that you need. And they've been really, really great partners. So let's get to the live chat. That's a lot. Aaron Day has an enormous amount of expertise. CJP Rumble, yes, I see your comment there. We want to see a full breakdown of the Genius Act. I thought we did that, actually. I thought he broke it down pretty well in that interview, but we'll expand that next Monday with Aaron Day. Fez Woody has this comment: fiat money has just about gone bust, so let's really create fake money with crypto. And that really is, it's the culmination. It's the full reveal of you'll have nothing, you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy, right? So this idea that you don't own land or you don't own, your own money, your own retirement, you have ownership of nothing. They manage and manipulate all of it. And you're happy probably because, they've hopped us up on who knows what, new mRNA technologies. I mean, it really is. It is the most dystopian plan that I've ever seen. And Aaron nails it when he says that there just isn't any pushback. This is why I mentioned that it reminds me, I don't know about all of you, does this remind you of COVID and the pandemic? I remember very clearly in March of 2020, just being pummeled with all of this propaganda, the worst pandemic in the history of the world. Everyone's going to die. All of the models, nothing made sense. 2 weeks to slow the spread, the nationwide lockdown, mask mandates, everything was so confusing. And I remember, having to go on air every single day during that time from home, right? We were kicked out of our studios in iHeart. And so I had to monologue at home, like literally talking to a wall every single day. And it was so outside of my wheelhouse. I was not a doctor. I was not a nurse. I am, don't have scientific background. I don't know how to read peer review studies. I didn't, this was not an area of expertise. And there were so many people out there. It was so confusing. And I remember at the time, like really struggling to even understand what was going on. I knew that something was very wrong. And I knew that it was about control, but it was really hard to pin it. And right now, and the other bizarre, aspect of that was the fact that Democrats and Republicans were both all in. There was no pushback. I remember thinking that Republicans would lose their minds. There's no way. I remember thinking New Yorkers, I'm like, you're going to lock New Yorkers up in their 400 square foot apartments in Manhattan or in the Queen or the Bronx, and you're going to do that for 2 weeks? They're going to revolt. There is no way people are going to go for this, even if they're liberals or Democrats. But Rush Limbaugh supported it. Alex Jones supported it. All the right-wing news people supported it. Left-wing news, New York Times, MSNBC, like that was the one moment you saw them all on the same page on this one issue. And it reminds me of that today with the technocracy. It reminds me of that. Like you see some headlines from the left, but there's no real pushback from left-wing politicians or elected Democrats. You're not seeing a whole lot of pushback on mainstream news media and the New York Times. Like they're talking about it a little bit, but there's no sense of urgency. There's no pushback. And on the right, completely anesthetized because their golden god king is in office. And so I agree with Aaron that the problem here is that there isn't enough pushback, especially from the right. We could have a lot of impact. We could stop a lot of these things if we actually had the right information, good information, and spoke up about it. Travis, only 30-ish audio glitches today. Best show so far. Travis, we have figured out the audio problem on the Shannon Joy Show. It has to do with me grabbing this cord. So this mic is old. The cord is old, and it's a replacement cord. This is a Fifine. It's served me very well, but it's getting older. And so sometimes this will pull out. And so I've gotten into the habit of kind of pushing it back in and manipulating it. And when I do that, Travis, that is when you hear like the click. And so I appreciate you and want to thank you for pointing that out to me. I think we figured it out. And the brand new microphone for the Shannon Joy Show, we're going to try a Yeti. So the Yeti is in the mail. We're going to set it up hopefully today or tomorrow, and we won't have any more audio issues here on the show. Nautical, I withdraw my stable coins off of an exchange. Oh, this is interesting. So Nautical writes, I withdrew my stable coins off of an exchange and later went bankrupt. And then they sued me for clawback. I had to hire an attorney and fight the clawbacks along with thousands of others. This is the nasty situation that we are going to be in when they digitize our money, our wealth, our homes, our retirement accounts, and put it in the hands of the government and their corporate oligarchical backers. They will have carte blanche to turn off our money. I mean, this is very dangerous. This is why, along with my gold IRA, so I do a gold-backed IRA through Colonial. It's not paper gold. It's not invested in gold mining stocks. It's literally gold-backed. So the gold is in the bank. That is my IRA account. In addition to that, as you guys know, I also purchase physical gold and silver from Colonial Metals Group as well. And that's basically, I mean, what can you do? I've got cash, I've got land, I've got the gold, we have, the IRA. And then you just have to hunker down and just wait for the opportunity to make good decisions. Because just like COVID, there is so much hitting us at the same time. And I do think that we are close, hopefully, to waking up enough people to push back on this and really come out of the two-party political system. And so this is where I got in a little bit of trouble over the weekend because I was really criticizing right-wing news media. In fact, Annie, do you want to play the clip? So I posted this out. Obviously, we do the full 90-minute show every day live here on all of our platforms. And then we push the show out and we'll sometimes clip the show. And so we ran this clip last week after my technocracy show, and it did really well. It is upwards. It's getting towards about 100,000 views on the Twit. Yes, Rothen Walker. Shannon, there are audio glitches in your commercials because I've heard them in your commercials. Yes, because I'm using this mic and this cord. And if I'm in my commercial and I adjusted it all, you're going to hear the audio glitches. Everyone wants to talk about the audio glitches. So that should be taken care of once we set up the Yeti. But so we ran a clip over the weekend, did really well. But there was a contributor, a guy who reports on Technocracy. His name is Joe Allen. His handle is JoeBot XYZ. And he goes on Steve Bannon's War Room on a regular basis to talk about technocracy. And he had a real problem with this clip. And I want to end on this discussion because it's important, the nuance of right-wing news media and the trick that they have. And I'm not saying that Steve Bannon is using this trick, but very often they will talk about the things that are important to you, that need to be discussed, like the technocracy, like AI, like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. But they never do it when it matters, and they never, ever, ever point to Donald Trump. They never, ever expose the culprit, the person behind this, where the buck stops. It's always, either, some type of abstract fear mongering about AI and artificial intelligence and digital money and digital IDs, but they never link it right to Trump. And it's never been more obvious than in the past, I would say 6 months, but really in the past 3 weeks, because it has been one executive order after another, one passage of a bill after another to fully implement the technocracy. And all of it is because of Trump. It is all being generated by Trump. Now, we know that he is a puppet and he does what he's told, but the analysis is never, ever, ever. It's missing the most important element, which is Trump. Right? So their audiences believe that Trump is fighting this somehow. They believe that, well, if Trump is doing it, well, maybe it's okay because he's in charge of it. They're afraid of AI, but if it's Trump's AI, well, we're not really sure about how this is going to play out. It's unclear, right? They're basically giving, when it is critical that people understand exactly who is behind this and exactly who is doing this, how they are doing it, and how we can stop it. That's the information that their audiences need, and they need it right now. Right now, they're talking about, as you mentioned, Hillary's laptop, Lolita Express, Obama, and Russia. That is the majority of coverage. When this is all information that if enough Americans had, we could use to fight back against these control centers. And that's the point. But this was the clip. We'll run it, and then I'll get your thoughts on it, and we'll talk about Joe Allen's response. January 23, 2025, Trump signs the executive order removing all AI barriers. July 18, 2025, the Genius Act is signed into law. July 23, AI.gov goes live and AI action plan is released. Have you seen any of this on Steve Bannon's War Room? Have you seen any of this on Glenn Beck's chalkboard? Have you seen any of this on your favorite right-wing news radio or, commentator? Have you seen this on The Blaze? Have you seen this on Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro? Have you seen any type of in-depth analysis from the right? None whatsoever. Exactly what they wanted to happen happened. Their guy got into office. Their guy was a Trojan horse for the technocrats. And now the right-wing media apparatus is looking away as this is happening again. The same thing that they did during the lockdowns of 2020 and the rollout of Operation Warp Speed. It is the exact same playbook. Groundhog Day political hell. Why am I the only one in right-wing news media, the only one in right-wing news media talking about this days after it happened? It is time for you to begin to challenge these people who are leading this nation, their constituents, their audiences off a cliff. Off a cliff. And that was the clip that really irritated. There were a couple contributors on Steve Bannon's War Room who were very irritated with me and came out and said, we do talk about this. Steve Bannon talks about this topic all the time. He's talked about Elon Musk. He's talked about the technocracy. He's talked about the digital currencies and all the things. And that was the one, that was the loudest was Joe Allen. His handle is at JoeBotXYZ. And, I checked out Joe. He's great. He has been on Steve Bannon's War Room multiple times. He's great on technocracy. He understands the concepts and AI. He puts out a lot of great information. But the issue, I told him, the issue isn't the topic is the right topic to be discussing, but if you're not attaching it to Trump, and they're always omitting Trump from the discussion, or they're soft pedaling, saying, well, we don't know why Trump is doing this. He's being led astray by his advisors. It's unclear how this is going to roll out. And it's always very soft. Like they're never, ever, ever going after, the truth, which is that Trump is a part of this. He is as a part of this as Joe Biden. In fact, Trump ushered in Operation Warp Speed and the dystopian lockdowns of 2020, which set this all in motion. Trump is now ushering in the worst of the technocracy. We haven't seen anything like this from Joe Biden. You could make the case that Trump is worse than Kamala because his constituency, the right and typical conservatives who would oppose these things, are completely asleep and anesthetized. And so they usher it in while they're sleeping. And so this is why why do you go after Trump all the time? Why do you go after Trump all the time? This is why we've got to move through this, and we have to force conservative media, outlets like Bannon's War Room, and because they'll talk about it. I'm sure that Glenn Beck has done. I got Glenn Beck people chatting at me on, criticizing that clip as well. Well, Glenn Beck did an entire, he's done this for years. He did an entire chalkboard series. And when it doesn't matter, right? So they do their series and their expose and their deep reporting, the hard hitting reporting when it doesn't matter. And then when it does matter, they're all off on vacation talking about Lolita Express and Obama and Hillary's laptop and everything but the most important thing. They were all asleep in 2020. I will never forget it. All bought in. Alex Jones selling the masks on InfoWars. All of them recommending Trump's poison shots. Not all of them, a lot of them. It's the timing, right? And so I stand by my analysis, and I invited Joe Allen onto the show. So he's going to be joining us because, he called me out. He's like, can someone educate this girl on the facts about the fact, how I go on Steve Bannon all the time and tell people about technocracy. And so I responded, well, why don't you come in and do it yourself? So we're going to have him on live on Wednesday, and we are going to have a debate about not only about this. You can be right. David Knight educated me in such a profound way. If you guys recall, David Knight, God bless him, he is on the mend. I think he's doing some shows, so we're so glad that he's back. A great commentator, and he worked with Alex Jones for over a decade and became a whistleblower on InfoWars. He now has his own show. It's excellent. It's a daily. And yes, Mark the Regan, Alex Jones did sell InfoWars masks during COVID. In addition to that, Alex Jones encouraged his audience to take Trump's vaccine because Trump's vaccine was the safe vaccine. Apparently, Obama had the bad vaccine, and he told his audience that Trump's vaccine was really basically sugar water. So he sent his entire audience out, and I forget which version of the vaccine was Trump's, but that is what Alex Jones did. None of them. Tucker Carlson drove to Mar-a-Lago in, I believe, March of 2020 and met with Trump for hours to convince him to lock the country down. And Tucker Carlson acknowledges that. I believe it's in his memoirs. He explains it, right? So they were all full on. And if they weren't full on pressing for lockdowns, they were ignoring it or not making the case to oppose lockdowns. So that was right-wing media. If we had pushback on COVID lockdowns from day one, I don't know that we would even be here today. I don't think they would have been able to sustain the lockdowns for long enough if the entirety of the right, of the conservative right, who would have raged against lockdowns from Biden, had stood up and refused to lock down. But because the movement was so anesthetized and led astray by right-wing media, we were in it. And then once we got in it, obviously Joe Biden and the Democrats took that football and ran with it, made it a million times worse. Well, we're now in it again with the technocracy. And once again, they are asleep at the wheel. And so that will be the conversation with Joe Allen. I hope we can have a nice debate. I would love to debate these guys. I would love to get on every one of these forums and talk to them about this, because it's astounding to me how they omit Trump from analysis on a regular basis. Trump poisoned millions of Americans with Operation Warp Speed and putting that in place, funding it, promoting it, pushing it out. And he has nothing to say. Zero remorse. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to hear about it. He won't take a question on it. And these are the same people. These people will talk about the great poisoning and the rollout of these shots. And then on the other hand, they will continue to defend and prop up this same president. It is just, I can't understand it. Karen Carpenter, 27, David Knight had a pre-recorded hour last week on the genocide in Gaza. He sounded good. Well, then I'm going to have to be tuning in again. Yes, Rothen Walker. Beck does chalkboards on technocracy, globalism, Agenda 2030, etc. But then the day after Trump's executive order on X3, he talked about American Eagle commercials. America is back. America is back. Right? So again, it's the timing. And it was David Knight. I got on a little bit of a tangent there, but it was David Knight, again, worked closely with Alex Jones, the epitome of the con man, and became a whistleblower on Alex Jones. That's why he left InfoWars. It was because of COVID. And so David Knight is now independent. And he taught me, he was a guest on my show many years ago. And he said the word con man, comes from the term confidence man. And so in order to gain your confidence, they have to tell the truth. If they were always lying, you would never believe them. You would never take their analysis, or you would never use it to impact or influence your life, because they're always lying. The key to a confidence man is being right 99% of the time. So saying things that will affirm you and affirm your belief and affirm your positions 99% of the time. But the 1% of the time when it matters, when they are rolling out the con, that is when they tell the great lie or the great series of lies, right? So you have great content from these guys for the 4 years of the Biden administration, but then Trump comes in and all of a sudden, as he's doing the exact same thing that Biden did, they're nowhere to be found. And the same can be said about the left. So we're attacking the right now in terms of the con and the propaganda. And again, this is why a lot of you will say, well, he was right on this and he was right on that and right on this, but wrong on that. The only thing that matters is the Trump thing, because Trump's the Trojan horse, right? They can be right on all the things. But if they are wrong about the guy who's doing it to you, the perpetrator, the perp, then the analysis is completely flawed. Everything else that they say falls apart. And so that's the difficulty of the moment that we live in today. And as I mentioned, it's the same with the left. Left-wing news media has a different type of propaganda that they use and that they deploy to their people. But the reality is both the right and the left work together. And that's why they've been able to so seamlessly lead us off of a cliff, because they just trade sides. It's always right hand, left hand. And at this point, it seems the technocracy, these technocrats, have a firm hold on both the right and the left. Used to be the bankers and the money people, but what everyone learned is that information is power. The most valuable commodity on the face of the planet is data. It is information, your information, my information. And the person who has the data will, de facto have the wealth. So right now, that is how these technocrats are seducing our politicians and even the bankers, because they've been able to set up systems to gain a lot of data and information. They don't have all of it. This is why we have to have more conversations about privacy. This is why, as individuals, every single day, you need to be working on ways to make your life as private as possible, to protect your critical information and your data as much as possible. It's one of the reasons I like physical gold. It's why I still like cash. Aaron Day probably wouldn't like cash. I love cash. Catherine Austin Fitz loves cash. And, I like to see people using it. But again, these are not conversations that we're having right now. XX Sparky is with us on the live chat. We have a couple more minutes. Yes, yeah. Karen Carpenter, Steve Bannon was deeply involved with Cambridge Analytica. I don't like to decide for these people. I don't know what drives Glenn Beck. I don't know what drives Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon. And I don't like to make determined or definitive statements about why they do things or what their agendas are. I prefer to just look at what they're reporting on, look at the facts that I can obtain, and then base my analysis on that. There are a lot of people out there who will they will pretend to know, who's behind everyone, and they're very quick to call people a change agent or intelligence or this and that. I don't really tend to do that because I just don't know. I don't have access to all the information. I couldn't credibly do that. I think everyone's influenced to a certain extent, and everyone is in the system, myself included, to a certain extent. You guys are as well. Everyone who's in this system is influenced by it in some ways. And so when they're doing great things and when the analysis is good, I want to use it. I'm just saying right now we need people pointing out and calling out Trump like immediately, because this is getting worse and worse and worse. From the Epstein rug pull to the technocratic rug pull to now not balancing our budget and essentially dumping the debt on the American people, essentially asking us to bail out the technocrats, the oligarchs, the billionaires, and the millionaires, right? The banksters. It's one rug pull after another, and I just don't know how long those on the right can remain credible in their analysis when they're just looking away. It makes me glad that I've pursued this line of what I believe is truth-based reporting, because it's very easy for me to come to you every day, tell you exactly what I think. I don't have to parse. I don't have to mince words. I tell you exactly what I believe to be the case, even though sometimes I'm wrong. It's hard for them to do this analysis because Trump just pulls the rug out from underneath them on a daily basis. And so I wish people would just rip the Band-Aid off already and pursue just basic reporting, like real reporting. CJP Rumble, I see you. Opossum King is with us. Mav 2022, I see you as well. Zen Woman, seriously, I stick with very few media sources, well-vetted ones. I drop them when they stray, just like Epic Times. I'm not loving Epic Times reporting. They did a great job during COVID, but Zen Woman, I don't disagree with you. They got political. And, once you hitch your wagon to a politician, in this case, Trump, it's going to impact your reporting. It's going to impact the way you tell the news. And Zen, I agree with you on the way that you vet. Consistency to me is everything. It's why Donald Trump. It's why Daniel Horowitz. I have a list of sources that I'll share with you guys that has changed over the years. I've had great sources that I used 5 years ago that I don't use anymore. I have sources that I didn't use 5 years ago that I use now. Like, for example, David Knight was in InfoWars for years. I wasn't using InfoWars, but now he's out and he's a whistleblower and he's good. He's so consistent, right? And so now that is a source. So it's always fluid. It's always flexible. And I would hope that all of you vet me as well. And listen, we're all humans. We are fallible. We make mistakes. Things that are present in our life today might not be present in our life 5 years from now. No one is the same. I don't think they're always, there are life situations that happen. And so you just always have to be testing your sources, looking for consistency, and continuing to hold them accountable. So I hope that you guys will always continue to hold me accountable as well. And that's it. That's the show. I see that Annie is, it's 1:32 p.m. Time to wrap up the Shannon Joy Show. Hope you guys had a great time with us. I know I always have a great time with all of you. And we have a big week this week coming up. Lots of great guests. We'll let you in on all of those tomorrow, but we'll appreciate all of you. Love having you on the live chat. I hope you have a great rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.